Hello Internet, Dave here, and welcome to my Living with Dyslexia and Asperger's video. I am doing this video in order to highlight some of the difficulties that I personally have faced and overcome with these conflicting disabilities and difficulties, and what I have done to overcome them. Firstly, dyslexia. It is quite possibly the hardest word to spell for the people who have the difficulty of not being able to spell. So a bit of a nice one that with. Now, somebody with dyslexia is normally very creative, very free thinking, very active, and has issues with spelling, reading, writing, and even sometimes speech. Now, when I was younger, I did have a very low developed speech pattern, because of my inability to understand between the different sounds and the way that the word was written. For example, instead of my R's were W's and my B's were D's. So instead of saying something like bed, I was like dead with a D, and run was run with a W. I overcame that with lots of practice with tongue twisters. So, round the ragged rocks, the ragged rascal ran, and seashells on the seashore, to help with my pronunciation. Also, with reading and writing, I have still struggled to this day to spell even some of the most basic words. Now, I may be able to sometimes spell kitchen, but I won't be able to spell scales. I still get which, and which confused. With the three different spellings, like which way, which one, and the wicked witch. Now, my most common spelling of which will be the wicked witch, which is W-I-T-C-H, rather than the other ones which I will not be able to spell for you now, because I can't. There is no way for my brain to put that together. Now, as a dyslexic, reading is also very difficult. There are many words that I still cannot read, and it'll take me several attempts to read them. Now, I actually enjoy reading. I enjoy reading books, but it takes me a very long time to read. For training and schoolwork, it was very, very difficult. I just managed to scrape a C in English in GCSE, which for myself was a very big achievement. When I left my original school before going to college, I went to a special school where people with learning difficulties and disabilities went to try and learn how to socialise, how to interact with the world. They didn't have GCSEs at that school at that time, so I left school with no GCSEs, but I managed to get them through college. It took me many years after most people got their GCSEs, after most people have got their A-levels, before I have achieved a GCSE, and I have one to my aim, and that is English literature in a C, and I am extremely proud of myself for getting that, because it was extremely difficult. Nowadays, it's even harder for dyslexias to get a GCSE of above a C if they are dyslexic, as there's no longer coursework. It is just pure exams, unless they've changed that. I'm not really up to date with the education system. So that's dyslexia. Free-flowing, free-thinking, very active, likes to jut around, and has a lot of difficulty with their spelling and reading, and even sometimes their speech. Now, the other condition that I live with is Asperger's Syndrome. Now, Asperger Syndrome, also known as Asperger's, is a developmental disorder characterized by significant difficulties in social interaction and non-verbal communication, along with restrictive and repetitive patterns of behavior and interests. As Asperger's Syndrome differs from ADHD by relative normal language and intelligence, although not required for diagnosis. Physical clumsiness and unusual use of language are common, signs usually begin before the age of 2 and typically last for the entire life of that person. Nobody is exactly sure what causes Asperger's. While it is probably partly inherited, the underlying genetics have not been determined conservatively. Environmental factors are also believed to play a role. Brain imaging has not identified a common unifying problem. There are no treatments that are known for Asperger's, and the effectiveness of particular inventors is supported only by very limited data. It is a difficult thing to live with. Now, some of the main things of Asperger's that I can tell you which conflict with dyslexia. As people with Asperger's, like myself, like a set routine. We like things in a certain order, rather like OCD, but without the need to have it all perfect. We like to always get up at a certain time. We have to do things at certain times. We have a set way of doing things. It has to always be done that way. If for any reason that is changed or threatened, it can cause us some serious issues. I'm talking about mentally, physically, emotionally. It will show. We get very upset, we get very agitated, we can get angry, we can shout, some can even get violent. I know this from unfortunate incidences in my past. Now, having a job is very, very good for people with Asperger's if it is having a set routine and pattern where every day is the same. However, because I also have dyslexia, my dyslexic side does not like the routine, and my Asperger's side does not like the creativity freaking going from moment to moment, and there's a conflict between the two, which caused me a lot of developmental issues. It had an effect on my mental age for most of my adolescent life. I was 5 to 6 years behind other people of my age, and in some ways I still am. Not as far behind now, but maybe 2-3 years behind somebody else my age in social interaction. A person with Asperger's cannot understand body language. Yes, body language, which for most people who do not have Asperger's makes up over 70% of how we communicate. Now, I know I talk with my hands a lot because that is the dyslexic side trying to move, trying to dominate, trying to assert itself with the creativity and the free flowing, and it's just become part of my my mental development, and my Asperger's side has come to accept that as one of my routines for when I talk. Doesn't mean I understand anything that my body is saying. I don't understand what you're saying when you're talking to me from a body language perspective. I have to go by the words that you're saying and the way that you're saying them, which is a very small amount of what anyone else does. I don't even understand the body language that I'm putting across. I don't know phrases. I can get confused with phrases. When I was younger, when somebody said, "I let the cat out of the bag," I was like, I haven't let any cat out of the bag. We don't have a cat. I don't understand what you're talking about. Phrases and sayings like that were always, and sometimes they still are. Another thing that I struggle with is humour and the understanding of humour. Now, you may say a joke to me or be joking around with me, and I will literally take it seriously. Or if I'm trying to be funny, it might come across as insensitive or offensive because I don't understand that level of communication. I really struggle. Now, most of my work colleagues are quite understanding of me, and the fact that I will say things without processing them, and things will just come out of myself. that aren't meant to be offensive, but can be taken that way. It is very difficult. I work in a retail environment, which for somebody with autism is a very, very difficult thing to do. It can be very stressful. That's even if we're standing around waiting for the customers to come in, or we're cleaning. I'm fine with cleaning. I'm fine with putting out stock, because that is a routine. That is not interacting with somebody. That is doing a task until it is completed. It's when I serve customers that I really struggle sometimes, especially if they're shouty, if they're aggressive, or if they're even slightly have a different way of communicating and don't understand the way that I'm trying to communicate with them. It gets very, very difficult. I also don't like standing around too long. I need to be doing something. Once again, my dyslexia side conflicting with my Asperger side. My dyslexia side wanted to do something, wanted to get on with something, and my Asperger side going like, no, we need to do this. We need to stand here. We need to make sure that everyone who comes in is welcome. I must not move from the spot, but there's people over there that needs to be served and that needs to be done. You can sort of see how frustrated I am just trying to explain it. It is a very difficult thing to live with. I am going to put links in the description of this video that will take you to sites that better describe what dyslexia is and Asperger's is, and what they are and how they affect people. Please do read it. I know I'm not the best person at explaining these things. I just wanted to put it out there, how I am personally living with this and trying to overcome these things. As I say, with my dyslexia, I am reading a lot of books. I am trying to write a lot more. I am trying to spell better without the aids of spell check. Because spell check, even though it is absolutely a brilliant thing, will sometimes be like, what in all of creation is this word you're trying to write? I do not understand what you're trying to write. It makes no sense. It has no meaning. It does not exist. And with my Asperger side, I have taken up things like martial arts. I have taken up things like gym. I am going out and interacting with other people who I do not know. I will speak to random strangers. It is very scary and it is very difficult. But that is what I am personally doing to overcome this. There are others on the autism spectrum which do not even leave their homes because it is so difficult for them to go out and interact with the world. So please try to understand us. I know that we're mad and insane and have issues, but we do our best to overcome them. I have hoped that this has somehow educated you and brought to light some of the issues that people with dyslexia and autism face on a daily basis. Until my next video, this is Dave. I have Asperger's. I have dyslexia. Knowledge is power, and I try to use it wisely.